Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. On the front line against bird flu, egg farmers fear they're losing the battle. A worker moves crates of eggs on January 11th, 2024, at the Sunrise Farms processing plant in Petaluma, California, which has seen outbreaks of avian flu. Greg Herbrook knew 6.5 million of his birds needed to die, and fast. But the CEO of Herbrook's poultry ranch wasn't sure how the third generation family egg producer, one of the largest in the U.S., was going to get through this round of avian flu, financially or emotionally. One staffer broke down in Herbrook's office in tears. The mental toll on our team is dealing with that many dead chickens is just, you can't imagine it, Herbrook said. I didn't sleep. Our team didn't sleep. The stress of watching tens of thousands of sick birds die of avian flu each day, while millions of others wait to be euthanized, kept everyone awake. In April 2024, as his first hens tested positive for highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, H5N1, Herbrook turned to the tried and true USDA playbook, the stamping out strategy that helped end the 2014 and 2015 bird flu outbreak, which was the largest in the U.S. until now. Within 24 to 48 hours of the first detection of the virus, state and federal animal health officials work with farms to cull infected flocks to reduce the risk of transmission. That's followed by extensive disinfection and months of surveilling and testing to make sure the virus isn't still lurking somewhere on site. Since then, egg farms have had to invest millions of dollars into biosecurity. Employees shower in and shower out before they start working and after their shifts ends to prevent spreading the virus. A sign outside of Herbrook's poultry ranch in Saranac, Michigan, one of the largest egg producers in the U.S. Since the last bird flu outbreak in 2015, farms have invested millions of dollars into biosecurity. But none of that has been enough to contain the outbreak that started 3 years ago. This time, the risk of human health is only growing, experts say. Nearly all of the 70 total human cases in the U.S. have been just since March, including the nation's first human death in early January. 2 people were recently hospitalized in Ohio and Wyoming. The last 6 months have accelerated my concern, which was already high, said Dr. Nahid Badalia, an infectious disease physician and the founding director of Boston University Center on Emerging Infectious Diseases. Controlling this virus has become more challenging. Precisely because it's so entrenched in the global environment. Spilling into mammals such as dairy, cows, and affecting more than 160 million birds in commercial and backyard flocks in the U.S. Because laying hens are so susceptible to the H5N1 virus, which can wipe out entire flocks within days of their first infection, egg producers have been on the front line in the fight against various bird flu strains for years now. But this moment feels different. Egg producers and the American Egg Board are begging for a new approach. Many infectious disease experts agree that the risks of human health of continuing current protocols is unsustainable, because of the strain of bird flu driving this outbreak. The one we're battling today is unique, said David Swain, the former lab director of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. Agriculture Research Service, ARS, Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory, SEPRL, and a leading national expert in avian influenza. It's not saying for sure there's going to be a pandemic of H5N1, Swain said. But it's saying the more human infections, the spreading into multiple mammal species is concerning. Red Star chickens feed in their coop at historic Wagner Farm in Glenview, Illinois on January 10th, 2023. For Herbrook, it feels like a war. 10 months after Herbrook's poultry ranch was hit, the company is still rebuilding its flocks and rehired most of the 400 workers they had to lay off. Still, he and his counterparts in the industry live in fear. Watching other farms get hit too, even 3 times in the last few years. I call this virus a terrorist, he said. And we are in a battle and losing at the moment. When biosecurity isn't working, or just isn't happening. So far, none of the 23 people who contracted the disease from the commercial poultry have experienced severe cases, but the risks are still very real. The first human death was a Louisiana patient who had contact with both wild birds and backyard poultry. The person was over the age of 65 and reportedly had underlying medical conditions. And the official message to both backyard farm enthusiasts and mega farms has been broadly the same. Biosecurity is your best weapon against the spread of disease. But there's a range of opinions among backyard flock owners about how seriously to take bird flu, said Katie Ochtert, a Michigan State University extension educator who specializes in biosecurity communications. Skeptics think we're making a mountain out of a molehill, Ochtert said, or the media may be blowing it out of proportion. which means there are two types of backyard poultry enthusiasts, Akhtar said. Those doing great biosecurity and those who aren't even trying. I see both, she said. I don't feel like there's really any middle ground there for people. And the challenges for biosecurity are completely different for backyard coops than massive commercial barns. How are hobbyists with limited time and budgets supposed to create impenetrable fortresses for their flocks, when any standing water or trees on the property could draw wild birds carrying the virus? Trucks are washed before entering the Herbrooks Poultry Ranch, one of the biosecurity measures farms have taken to try to reduce the spread of bird flu. Rosemary Rims, an 82-year-old retired educator in Iona, Michigan, grew up farming and has been helping the local 4-H poultry program for years. Teaching kids how to raise poultry. Now with the bird flu outbreak, I just don't let people go out to my barn, she said. We made changes to the fair last year, which I got questioned about a lot. And I said, no, I gotta think about the safety of the kids. Reams was shocked by the news of the death of the Louisiana backyard flock owner. She even questioned whether she should continue to keep her own flock of 20 to 30 chickens and a pair of turkeys. But I love them. At my age, I need to be doing it. I need to be outside. Reams said that's what life is about. She says she'll do her best to protect herself and her 4-H kids from bird flu. But even the best biosecurity in the world hasn't been enough to save large commercial farms from infection, said Emily Metz, president and CEO of the American Egg Board, an industry group. The industry thought it learned how to outsmart this virus after the last outbreak in 2014 to 2015. That time, we were spreading it amongst ourselves between egg farms with people, with trucks, Met said. So egg producers went into lockdown, she said, developing intensive biosecurity measures to try to block the routes of transmission from wild birds to other farms. Met said the measures egg producers are taking now are extensive. They have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in improvements. Everything from truck washing stations, which is washing every truck from the FedEx man to the feed truck and everything in between. Busing in workers so that there's less foot traffic. Laser light systems to prevent waterfowl from landing. Lateral spread when the virus is transmitted from farm to farm has dropped dramatically down from 70% of cases in the last outbreak to just 15% now, according to the USDA. And yet, Met said, all the measures we're doing are still getting beat by this virus. The fight over vaccinating birds. Perhaps the most contentious debate about bird flu in the poultry industry right now is whether to vaccinate. Given the mounting death tolls for animals and the increasing risks to humans, there's a growing push to vaccinate certain poultry against avian influenza, which countries like China, Egypt, and France are already doing. Last year, the World Organization on Animal Health urged nations to consider vaccination as part of a broader disease prevention and control strategy. Swain, the avian influenza expert and poultry veterinarian who works with WO and says most of his colleagues in the animal and public health worlds see vaccination of poultry as a positive tool in controlling this pandemic in animals, but also as a tool that reduces chances for human infection and chances for additional mutations of the virus to become more human adapted. But vaccination could put poultry meat exporters, whose birds are genetically less susceptible to H5N1 than laying hens, at risk for losing billions of dollars in international trade deals. That's because of concerns that vaccination, which lowers the severity in disease in poultry, could potentially mask infections and bring the virus across borders, according to John Clifford, former chief veterinary officer for the USDA and an advisor for the USA Poultry and Egg Export Council. If we vaccinate, we not only lose $6 billion potentially in exports a year. Clifford said, if they shut us off, that product comes back on the U.S. market. Our economists looked at this and said we would lose $18 billion domestically. Clifford added, that would mean the loss of over 200,000 agricultural jobs. Even if those trade rules changed to allow meat and eggs from vaccinated birds, there would still be logistical hurdles. Vaccination possibly could be on the horizon in the future. But it's not going to be tomorrow or the next day, next year or whatever, Clifford said. To just take one obstacle, none of the current HPAI vaccines are in perfect match for the current strain, according to the USDA. But if the virus evolves to be able to transmit from human to human, he said that would be a game changer for everybody, which would probably force a vaccination. In January, the USDA announced it would pursue a stockpile that matches current outbreak strains in poultry. While deploying a vaccine for poultry would be difficult in practice and may have trade implications, in addition to uncertainty about its effectiveness, the USDA has continued to support research and development in avian vaccines. The agency said. Since then, one company has received a conditional license for a vaccine in chickens. But a USDA spokesperson said on Tuesday that this is a normal step in the research and development phase, not in the implementation of a vaccine strategy. And the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, will be rolling out a comprehensive strategy in the coming days. At this point, Metz argued that the industry can't afford not to try vaccination, which has helped eradicate diseases in poultry before. We're desperate and we need every possible tool, she said. And right now, we're fighting this virus with at least one, if not two arms tied behind our back. And the vaccine can be a huge hammer in our toolbox. But unless the federal government acts, the tool won't be used. And industry concerns aside, infectious disease physician Fidelia said there's an urgent need to focus on reducing the risk of humans getting infected in the first place. And that means reducing chance of infection in animals that are around humans, which includes cows and chickens, which is why I think vaccination to me sounds like a greater plan. But I just don't know enough about the animal physiology to see how affected that would be. The lesson that we keep learning every single time is that if we'd acted earlier, it would have been a smaller problem, she said.